This is the last match that we have. We can't lose, otherwise we're gonna be out of LCS.
I mean, if you lose, you just look terrible. So we want to keep our pride.
I can imagine it's going to be quite interesting to watch.
I think the strongest point is just Santorin, and everyone else is like very inconsistent.
Everybody wants to be in LCS. If you lose, you have to play Challenger Series, and it doesn't really feel great.
We pretty much have to do all we can, improve as much as we can, so we can try to take the win and stay in LCS.
This is really high pressure, obviously. We don't have any more chances, and it's just time to go all out for us.
Good afternoon, everybody. The North American LCS Promotion Series concludes today. 2 LCS teams arrived here this morning, but only one will go on to the 2017 Spring Split. EchoFox Jungler Hard here, seen setting up, getting ready for today's best of 5. He'll be facing off against NRG. And you can see Santorin, he's going to be coming out alongside mid laner GBM to try to get things started for the day. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. I'm Rivington Bisson III, joined on the desk by Isaac Azael Cummings Bentley. Isaac, I know you have so much to say. What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. It's kind of, I feel like I'm in a twilight zone. I've been on the desk twice this weekend and no dash either time. I don't know what's happening.
Let's try to stop myself. I'm James Daspet. Actually, I'm not. Things are switched up today, but it still leaves NRG and it still leaves Phoenix 1. I'm sorry, NRG and EchoFox out on the Rift to play today. Yesterday, Phoenix 1 and Cloud9 Challenger qualified for the LCS following their victories over EchoFox and NRG. As a result of that, today NRG and EchoFox are forced to battle it out for the last remaining LCS slot right here in just a couple of minutes. And it puts the pressure on. They've kind of felt it for the last bit of the split, Isaac, but coming up to now, they have to leave it all on the Rift or they're going to have to go home.
And it's going to be a tough one, and confidence, I think, will come a lot into play, simply because both these teams straight up got blasted yesterday. It was 3-0s across the board.
Put it that way.
And, I mean, they got to come back, and they got to stay confident, know that they can execute, rely on the successes that they've had in the past.
We'll have to see what happens. We are just about ready to jump into game. The teams are ready to get locked in for Champion Select. As we toss to the casters to get underway, GBM has some fighting words for EchoFox.
상대방이 에코폭스라서 좀 부담스럽지는 않아요. 왜냐면 제가 에코폭스한테 진 적이 한 번도 없어서 이번에 좀 프로겐하고 좀 급하고 미안하지만 내가 올라가야겠다.
Well, we'll see if that's the case here for GBM and the rest of NRG Sports. We are here and ready to go into the cast. I am David Freak Turley, and watching with me and you, everyone's friend, it's Sam Kobe Hartman Kensler.
Hello, friend.
Hello,
right,
friend.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it, absolutely. So EchoFox and NRG are battling it out in a best of 5 with the last spot in the North American LCS 2017 Spring Split up for grabs. Loser goes on a Challenger, winner LCS.
Yes, today is a very tense day for both of these teams. As they said on the desk, both these teams got 3-0'd yesterday, and so it's going to take a lot of mental fortitude to come back today, because this is where everything matters. And let's take a look at these two teams. There are bright spots for each team. On NRG, they beat EchoFox twice during the summer split. They have to feel pretty good about that coming in to this series. For EchoFox, though, Froggen has been looking a lot better than GBM. I mean, GBM versus Cloud9 Challenger and versus High had a pretty rough series there for him. And Froggen on EchoFox has been definitely their best player, trying everything he can possibly do in every game that they do play.
Absolutely agree, and we've seen Froggen pull several bans sort of every single game they play and still find something nice to play, like the Ardent Sensor Lux in Game 5 against TLA. Maybe we get more good things from them. But let's talk about players on the other side, because whilst Froggen's been good and GBM's not been great, Hard versus Santorin goes the other way.
Exactly. Hard has been struggling in EchoFox's series, whereas Santorin, we even saw it in that video, all the other teams are recognizing him as being a huge playmaker for this team. He's doing a lot in the early game. I mean, all those old jokes about him back in 2015 or something are out the window. Santorin has been ganking pretty much all lanes and trying to get anyone ahead for his team. So those are definitely roles that can influence the mid lane matchup as well. So these are two of the ones that we're going to keep our eyes on for this series.
Absolutely agree. That 2-on-2 mid jungle going to be a big deal in this matchup, probably for the entire time. So we're going to check out the starting lineup before we get ourselves into the first game. On the blue side for this one is EchoFox with KFO up in the top lane, Hard in the jungle. Froggen in mid, big player for them. Keith at AD carry, big on support. And their coach, Heaven Time.
And choosing red side for game number 1, it is NRG. Up top is Quas. In the jungle, Santorin. Mid, GBM. AD carry, OQ. Support, Kiwi Kid. And Coach Hermit on stage. Now, they are having a bit of a sound issue right now, so we're going to delay the champion select for a little bit more, and we can talk more about the importance of this day, because this is the day. We talked a little bit about mental fortitude, but to me, these are the games that it really does come down to that mental game, because both of these teams have been on the bottom of the LCS, and people really underestimate how difficult it is to be a pro player, especially a pro player on one of the teams that are at the bottom of the LCS. Because even though they are better than 99.99% of other league players out there, they get so much criticism. And so a lot of the gameplay here for these teams are the mental fortitude of trying to keep up your attitude and keep your team morale high and come into something like this very focused on what you need to do to win.
Right. That's the thing is, like, if you're the 12th best support in North America, like, you're the worst player in this league and everyone's like yelling at you, but you're the 12th best player in your role. Like, that's exceptionally good. And that's kind of the situation some of these players are in right here. And so we can kind of see just what they're able to do for themselves. Echo Fox specifically have had to play a whole lot of games as well. Thankfully for them, they've pulled out a couple of wins. They got that match win over Team Liquid Academy, which is a big deal for them. But since Thursday, this is now their 3rd best of 5. Like, they've had to dump so many games in and make sure that they're ready to go. And the thing is, as well, because they've played so much, of course, these teams are heavily scoutable, right? This is like, in one day, well, now we know your strats, and now we're ready to pick for you.
Yeah, and Echo Fox has been very clear kind of with their pick orders. A couple of champions for each role, and they kind of go down the tier list. For top, it has been the Fiora and the Gnar for them. And then jungle, very obviously. Well, the jungle tier list is pretty much the same for everybody.
Everyone's playing Rek'Sai Gragas almost all the time.
Hard has been going a lot with the Gragas. Trying with that one. And then Froggen actually has a decent amount of wiggle room there, but he's been receiving so many bans, as you talked about. Then it's pretty much been the Vladimir and Malzahar for him. And Soraka, pretty much every game for Big. Every game that they can get it has been Soraka for him. But we'll have to see if NRG are prepared for it, because they definitely have seen the last 2 series where Echo Fox drafted very similar compositions in almost every game. That being said, if you lay that kind of groundwork, Echo Fox, we're going to surprise them now and switch everything up, try something different.
Well, it's something I really liked, actually, coming in and watching the specifically Echo Fox versus Phoenix 1 series, because there was a 2-day break between the Echo Fox TLA series on Thursday and then on Saturday when these guys played P1. And basically P1 said, okay, so we understand what you're drafting. And like, okay, so seeing the bans that TLA did, they like, okay, here's what Froggen plays. And so P1 got to say, okay, well, we know what you're going to first pick. We know we can make you first like Malzahar and prep a strat knowing you're going to play that champion and like set up the ban and pick phase around that situation. Now Echo Fox finally had the same situation themselves. They got to see NRG play a few games as well. They got to see what the pick trends are and whatnot, and actually just be ready, because you've got basically a 12-hour turnaround between playing your last series and playing this one. Not a lot has changed. You haven't learned a new champion to put in the pool, and it's all now, it's even more so, I think, about your prep work and knowing what they're obviously going for in this case. And I think it's an interesting contrast between this and playoffs. I got to talk really briefly with some of the C9 players when they were getting makeup. They're here for features. They're going to talk about their series against Envy next weekend. And the thought was like, hey, the metagame is going to evolve every single week in the playoffs, because 615 is going to come out for the playoffs. It's going to change what champions you play. And then after week 1, everyone takes those learnings and applies them to week 2. And then week 2 looks different from week 1. And then the semifinals happen and you apply them again into the 3rd place match in the final. And like, you keep evolving the game every single week, even if you're playing on the same patch. In this case, you don't get a chance to evolve. You get a chance to adapt what your opponents think is good and counter strat them essentially.
Yeah, and just to recap for everybody tuning in now, had some audio issues that we're working through at the moment, and so we will get into Champ Select as soon as possible. But yeah, this is everybody's getting pretty antsy so far. I mean, we have one of these teams that was in the North American LCS during Summer Split that will not be with us, probably going to the Challenger Series.
Yeah, one of these 2 new teams of the year. Both these teams actually sort of created at the beginning of 2016 the spots for pot by their previous from the previous teams, basically, new owners. And They both had reasonably good spring splits. Echo Fox in 7th, but even that was only because they didn't have the roster together for part of it. Like, they were nearly a playoff team. NRG was a playoff team. And then Echo Fox kept the same formula. They came back at the split again in the summer. NRG replaced 4 of their players, and both teams actually got worse in the summer split. And, unfortunately, now we're here as the 2 bottom performing NALCS teams.
Yeah, it's always cool to look through each of the rosters too and pick out all these returning players. Quas there on your screen, having taken off time from Team Liquid and taking off a split there for a while. Santorin coming back, previous time on TSM. So all these people that have been in the LCS before, have played at this level before, gone through some off time, had some ups and downs, and found themselves back here battling once again. For a spot.
And at least you see the players are able to find homes constantly if they're worth the effort and they're good enough players. But since we do have a bit of a delay on stage, we're going to toss it over to the analyst desk to talk about the match some more.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and we will take over for a little bit from here. We didn't get too much time in the beginning to discuss the matchup, so actually looking at this, Kobe mentioned kind of the mental going in. Is it really something that these players are going to have to lock down in the beginning? Can they use what they have in the way of education, what they've learned against the other team to kind of be able to release that mental pressure, say, let's get the first few games and do it strong? Or how are they going to work this?
Yeah, I think it can be really tough. And like having been in situations like pro gamer doing that kind of stuff with myself.
Absolutely.
There's sometimes it comes down to what kind of a player you are, what kind of a person you are in those situations. Because there are people who they rise to the occasion in these high pressure situations, and there's others who really crumble. And I think that I've played with both in the past, and I think a lot of people in these situations have played with both. And that can mean that the first game is so incredibly important, especially when you're playing with people who tend to kind of crumble under pressure.
Absolutely.
And it can really dictate the entire pace of the series, because sometimes just getting that first win is going to be able to give you the confidence to say, hey, we actually can do this. And a lot of these guys sometimes do need that little bit of a boost, right?
Yep.
And getting that first win can mean it's going to push you towards that series victory. And I think a lot does come down to confidence, but also, when you look across the board, I think one of the biggest mismatches here is going to be in the jungle. And I think that, Santorin is outclassing hard a lot. I think that's somewhere where if you're on energy, you can kind of look to that and be like, hey, that's where I can pull some confidence from.
Right.
Santorin should be able to smash this guy.
So when you look at that kind of matchup, is that something you actually go for in the picks and bans and leave Froggen open, leave a little bit of that top lane Ray open? How much do you actually put into consideration for that jungle matchup?
I think it can be tough. I think that you have to put a lot of consideration, not necessarily in picks and bans, but I mean the way you play the game, right? If you feel like, hey, this guy's champion pool is a little bit shallow and we can ban him out, then great, go for it. But with most of the junglers, they're playing very similar champions, and it's just about playstyle, aggression, and you have to really be wary of what they can do. And, KFO is a guy who does tend to get caught a lot. He greeds for these extra waves and stuff, and if he doesn't want to cost his team the series, potentially, he's going to have to play extra safe. He's going to have to know, hey, Santorin could be here. Maybe I should back off. I have to wait for my jungler. I have to wait for my support to make me safe in these situations.
Absolutely. All right, so it does look like things are getting ready to go. We're going to go ahead and send back to the battle theater to get this series started.